Nearly half. I mean, 45% of every single wooden chair, cabinet, or, dining table imported into the U.S. right now, it doesn't come from China.
Right. It comes straight from Vietnam.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking you inside a massive $17.2 billion pivot in global trade. We're specifically focusing on Vietnam's explosive rise as the world's furniture workshop.
It's just a massive structural shift. And to navigate it, we're pulling from a highly specialized stack of sources today. They were provided by Vietnam Direct Sourcing.
Yeah, and they gave us this incredibly granular guide, right? All about finding and vetting furniture and wood manufacturers.
Exactly, complete with these amazing infographics and supply chain mapping. It details exactly how capital and raw materials are, flowing through the country right now.
And our mission for you today is to translate all that raw data into an actual actionable playbook. Because if you're managing a global supply chain and you're looking at these numbers, well, the opportunity is obvious. But the execution is incredibly dangerous if you're flying blind. So we want to tear down how to bypass those expensive middlemen, understand regional specialties, and basically secure a reliable, high-quality supply chain in Vietnam without bleeding capital.
Which is really exactly what's at stake here. I mean, if you look at that $17.2 billion export record projected for 2025, wooden furniture alone accounts for like 60% of that value.
Wow, 60%. That's huge.
Right. And if you're in procurement, you're already living this China plus one reality. You understand the geopolitical friction, the tariffs, and, the rising labor costs pushing buyers out of traditional hubs.
Yeah, but what the sources really highlight is that Vietnam didn't just accidentally absorb this massive overflow, did they? They didn't just win a geographic lottery.
No, not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Vietnam isn't just a temporary trend. This boom rests on three very deliberate structural pillars.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Well, the highly competitive tariff advantage is just the entry point. The real anchors are a highly mature manufacturing base built over decades of foreign direct investment, by the way, and a deeply specialized labor force.
So we're not just talking about low-skill, flat-pack assembly here.
Exactly. This ecosystem is executing complex, solid wood construction, highly engineered plywood, intricate rattan, and premium upholstery.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Let me push back slightly. Because if the infrastructure is so perfectly mature and the labor is so skilled, why is this transition still a complete bloodbath for so many Western buyers?
That's a great question.
I mean, looking at the sources, they map out over 5,000 wood processing facilities currently operating in Vietnam. To me, that doesn't sound mature. That sounds like a chaotic gold rush, Like, there's massive opportunity, but a high risk of finding fool's gold if you don't know what you're doing.
That is a very fair pushback, and you've hit on the exact paradox of the market. The ecosystem is mature in its capabilities, but it's wildly asymmetrical in its capitalization.
What do you mean by asymmetrical?
Well, you have these world-class, heavily automated export campuses run by massive conglomerates, right? But they're operating right alongside a legacy network of, like, family-run tin roof workshops that just happen to have a few CNC machines.
Oh, wow. And they're all competing for your purchase orders.
Precisely. So if you, the listener, are a wholesaler executing a China plus one strategy, Vietnam offers this rare combination of scale and quality, but it requires serious homework.
So what does this all mean for the listener who is just starting out, since navigating 5,000 facilities is a literal nightmare without a compass?
It really is. And where companies bleed the most capital is failing to take that very first step before booking a flight or even sending a single email.
Which brings us to step one from the infographic, defining the spec. And read through this material, I mean, it's not enough to just say, I want chairs.
Oh, absolutely not. You need to know if it's indoor, outdoor, solid hardwood or engineered, your target landed price, and the required volume.
Right, because certifications like FSC certified timber and CARB or TSCA compliance are basically table stakes for the U.S. market now.
Exactly. A tight brief turns your sourcing from this blind fishing expedition into a targeted search, because suppliers literally cannot give you accurate quotes without this data.
So if you send a vague spec, a factory is almost incentivized to quote you, like non-compliant resins, just to win the bid.
Exactly. And then right before production, your compliance team demands the certification, the cost structure explodes, and your margins evaporate.
Yikes. And what's fascinating is that nailing down that tight spec actually dictates your physical location in Vietnam. The geographic strategy here is crucial.
It really is. You overlay this spec onto the map of Vietnam, and the landscape is intensely regionalized.
It's kind of like knowing which neighborhood in a new city has the best specific type of food, right? You wouldn't go to the seafood district looking for a steakhouse.
That is a perfect analogy. Knowing the geography prevents wasted time. So if your spec calls for high-volume, integrated export furniture like indoor cabinets, you look south.
Specifically around Ho Chi Minh City, Binh Duong, and Dong Nai, right?
Yes, that southern triangle holds about half of the entire industry's value. You want to be there because the factory making your hinges and the one printing your boxes are just down the street.
But if your spec demands outdoor or garden furniture, that southern infrastructure doesn't really serve you at all.
No, it doesn't, because the material science changes. You need weatherproofing, specific timber like acacia. So the map shifts you up to central Vietnam, specifically around Quy Nhon.
Because that's where the timber plantations and specialized kilns are.
Exactly. The local workforce there has generational expertise with extreme weather materials.
Okay, so you've defined your spec, you're in the right geographic cluster, you know you need to be in Binh Duong for your cabinets. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, the middleman trap.
Yes, being in the right zip code makes you a target for the industry's biggest danger. You build a shortlist, but you fall for the glossy catalog and the perfect website.
What's fascinating here is how sophisticated these trading middlemen have become. This is the #1 trap.
Right. The biggest mistake importers make is paying a trader's margin while falsely believing they're dealing directly with a factory.
Precisely. They present themselves as the manufacturer, flawless English website, maybe even a rented showroom. But they don't own a single piece of heavy machinery.
Wait, so they just take your massive order, slap a hidden margin on it, and farm it out to unvetted workshops?
You have a hidden 20 to 30% margin, and you lose all quality control leverage. To combat this, you need to follow steps 2 and 3 of the vetting infographic.
Which is moving beyond digital appearances to build a verified shortlist, right?
Exactly. You don't want a long list of unknowns. You need a targeted shortlist of like 3 to 8 verified manufacturers.
But how do you verify them? What's the actual process?
You demand their business license, check their registered activity, prove they actually own in-house production lines, and crucially review their export history for your specific product type.
Right, because if they claim to make dining chairs but mostly export raw plywood, that's a massive red flag. But let me ask you this on behalf of the listener. If the websites are fake, how do I actually find the real shortlists to begin with?
You have to lean into physical logistics.
Yeah.
Trade directories are a start, but attending major physical expos, like the VIFA Expo in Ho Chi Minh City, is huge.
And the sources also suggest getting referrals from freight forwarders, right? Because they actually move the physical containers. They know who is shipping what.
Exactly. Freight forwarders don't care about a glossy website. They care about tonnage. And of course, leveraging a local partner on the ground who has historical data.
Okay, but even after you build that vetted shortlist, let's say you narrow it down to 4 candidates, paperwork and licenses are great, but the only way to truly verify a factory is to see it in person.
Absolutely. This brings us to step 4, walking the floor. This is the ultimate test.
You literally have to fly there, physically see the machinery, look at the workforce, and actively ask what is being made in-house versus what is quietly being subcontracted out.
Right. And to bring this into stark reality, there's a specific case study in the sources that perfectly illustrates this.
Oh yeah, the U.S. homewares wholesaler looking to shift a range of oak cabinets out of China. Walk us through that.
So this wholesaler did everything right at first. They had a tight spec, they targeted Binh Duong and Dong Nai, and they ran the supplier identification.
They narrowed it down to 6 candidates, right?
Yep. And then shortlisted their top 2 for on-site evaluations. On paper, both looked like large-scale manufacturers. But because they walked the floor, they caught one candidate acting as a deceptive trader.
Wait, how did they actually catch them? If the trader rented a space, what was the physical tell?
It was the kinetic energy and the raw materials. The wholesaler looked at the factory footprint compared to the volume they claimed they could produce, and the math just didn't work.
Ah, so there wasn't enough machinery.
Right. And more importantly, no raw material staging. If you're about to produce thousands of oak cabinets, you'll see massive pallets of raw oak waiting for the CNC machines. There was almost none.
So it was just a front. They were planning to secure the contract and then subcontract it all out to unknown workshops.
Exactly. The wholesaler flagged the bad actor, dropped them, and went with the verified manufacturer. They confirmed all the FSC documentation, directly at the source.
And they also built in step 5, right? The pre-shipment inspection.
Yes, verifying the goods against the spec before the container doors are sealed. And because they did all this, they successfully shipped their first container with zero quality claims.
Zero quality claims on a first container from a new market is just incredible. But, this isn't just about business efficiency or profit margins.
No, it's fundamentally about ethical sourcing.
Right. Ensuring legal timber and acceptable labor conditions are things your end customers are increasingly demanding. If your supposed factory secretly subcontracts to a sweatshop, the reputational damage is instant.
Which is exactly why visibility is your most valuable asset. When you walk the floor of a verified manufacturer, you control that visibility.
Okay, so to synthesize this whole journey, Vietnam is undeniably the strongest furniture sourcing market in the world right now. The infrastructure, the labor, the volume, it's all there.
It really is.
But the line between a seamless, profitable supply chain and a massively expensive mistake entirely comes down to verification.
Exactly.
So define the spec, verify the license, walk the factory floor, and test everything. We really encourage you to take these 5 steps and apply them immediately to your own sourcing strategy. Treating sourcing as a rigorous investigative process is the only way to scale securely.
It really is the key. But, as we look at the sheer speed of Vietnam's maturation, it leaves us with a deeply provocative question for you to ponder.
Oh, lay it on us.
We've spent all this time breaking down how Western buyers can meticulously extract value from Vietnam's current manufacturing landscape.
Right.
But as Vietnam's own domestic economy rapidly matures and these factories develop their own native, globally competitive design brands, how long will it be until these massive Vietnamese manufacturers just stop needing Western wholesalers entirely?
Oh, wow.
I mean, how long until they bypass you and start selling directly to your customers?
Now that is a thought to keep you up at night. The very factories you're trying to partner with today could become your most lethal competitors tomorrow. It just shows that the gravity of global trade never sits still. So before you wire that deposit based on a flawless website, make sure you know exactly who owns the machines. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.